Hello, welcome back to Mountain Home Rookies, where we take you through the journey of building a mountain home out in rural Utah. Appreciate you watching our videos. If this is your first time, welcome. If it's not, if you come from our other videos, thank you for taking the time. Hope you've learned something along the way. Hope we all do. It's appreciated. It's definitely appreciated. And we're going to move on to our next topic. The next thing is a right-of-way. What is a right-of-way? Simply put, the right-of-way is the right for you to access your property. In our case, we bought 20 acres off of a state road. So being off of a state road, that means the Department of Transportation for our state owns the land between the fence line and the current road. So you cannot just go out there and dig a driveway if you do not have a right-of-way. Many properties already have one, which is great. This property turned out to have one, but we'll get to that in a moment. Let's back up a little bit. Right-of-ways and the whole purpose behind them. So every road, whether it's city, county, or state, or even federal, they usually own the rights to a certain amount of distance for the road. They don't necessarily own just the road. They'll have usually a set distance on either side for expansion, for maintenance. So a property owner, if you own land next to that road, you don't necessarily own the land attaching to it. Sometimes you do already. It's built in, recorded with the county. If it's not, that's what we're going to go over today. In this case, when we bought our 20 acres, we were told there's no right-of-way with the Department of Transportation. So we had to figure out what is a right-of-way and how do we get one. So we had to contact the Department of Transportation and figure out what is the process for doing this. So in our state, this is the general process and what it takes. First, you have to determine that where you want your right-of-way to be is safe for traffic. Our particular road has a 50-mile-per-hour speed limit on it. You do not want to be pulling out of a driveway with cars speeding down at 50 miles per hour if you can't see them. So the first thing that was required of us was traffic, basically a traffic plan and a traffic study. So we had to hire somebody to go out there and basically watch the traffic and do sight lines and determine that where we wanted to be would be safe enough for us to enter and egress our property safely. It turns out that it was, but keep in mind that that's going to be the first step. Make sure it's safe where you want it to be. The second step is engineering. Most municipalities, governments, they're going to have their own set of requirements as to how they want your driveway to be on their right-of-way. They could allow it to be just dirt, gravel, cement, concrete, asphalt, all sorts of options. They may be very particular on how it needs to be. So pay attention to their codes. They'll probably help guide you along with that to make sure you're satisfying their requirements. In our case, there was also a drainage ditch along the side of the road. So we had to factor that in, that we'll need a culvert to allow water to flow underneath our driveway. So do keep in mind drainage is important. Why is drainage important? I don't think anyone wants their driveway to be washed out and taken out the first time you have a rainstorm or the snow melts. So pay attention to drainage, and especially in the right-of-way area. Again, you'll most likely be guided into that regard, and they'll let you know if there's any drainage issues. The next step is defining the land that you're going to take out of that right-of-way. That land you typically have to pay for, and they will have an appraisal done on it, just like with real estate, and you will pay for your section. We were fortunate enough, and this is where research comes in very important, we were fortunate enough to have one of the engineers working with us on our right-of-way plans to discover that an old county recorded document of an agricultural right-of-way on its separate part of the property. And it was the right width, in our case 16 feet, for what we were wanting to build for a driveway. And we do appreciate that, because using that right away, we did what was called a transfer, also known as a land swap for people who deal with buying and selling land. We basically swapped our agricultural right away for where we want our driveway to be and get right away access there. Once you have that all settled, that needs to be recorded with the county to show that you now have ownership of that strip of land. And from there, you'll get, at least in the state of Utah, what they call an access permit, determining that you now have access to your property on that right-of-way strip. Now keep in mind, access permit determines that you have ownership of that, and an encroachment permit gives you rights to dig and build on it. Those are two separate items. Access permits, encroachment permits. Remember, those are two separate items. If you're on a county road or a city road, often the access will be granted to you fairly quickly, but you'll still need encroachment permission, typically. Just work with your county or municipality if you're going through this process, and they'll help you with that. If you're going through the state like we are, it was the Department of Transportation, and again, they'll guide you mostly through that process. Again, right away is important. That's how you have access. No, you can't just bulldoze your way to your property if you don't have ownership and permission, which is called the right-of-way access onto your property. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. We'll try to get to them as soon as we can. Otherwise, thank you again. Please like this video, subscribe, and we'll see you all later. See ya.